Let's start with a short review of C. We've now completed C, and we should have a really deep understanding. The phrase I really like that I've read in a few different books is a profound understanding of the process. I like that, profound. So we have a really good understanding of what's going on, what's working, what's not working, so that we could start to think about solutions. But before we get into that, we should recognize that, ourselves or our team might have a little bit of groupthink going on. And so we should double check our work, take a look at the logic. I like to again, we've got a nice communication device in this A3 report. Let's take that to a manager or a peer or somebody who's not so involved in the project, put it in front of them, talk them through our logic, and see if they agree. It doesn't take long, and it may provide some insights or some thoughts that you didn't have while you went through this, okay? And so that's really the critical point, is we should now be where we feel really strongly about our understanding of root cause, such that we can really have a good discussion or working discussions around the solve, okay? So solve is really about exactly what it says, finding countermeasures. We want to brainstorm ideas and find things that are permanent. This isn't about, the Band-Aid fix of not using the dryer because it's full of lint and it just shuts off, right? This is about finding the solution where we reroute the ductwork so that we can continue to use the dryer and not really even have to clean it all that often. So we're looking for that permanent solution. And we're going to need a diverse group to do that. It may be some of the same people that were already involved in our problem discovery phase, in our C phase. But it may also include some folks that along the way we've learned have contribution. Maybe they're a supplier to our process and they're contributing to either the problem, or they could contribute to ideas around the solution. We're going to want to evaluate ideas. So we're going to develop those ideas as a group. We're going to evaluate those ideas. And then select and implement the best idea with a focus on the activities needed to implement. This is going to be developing your project management skills. If you haven't done a lot of project management, you're going to need to learn or practice some of those skills here. And we'll talk about those, of course. But one of the things that, and I'll probably say it again, one of the things that's absolutely crucial is the persistence. The people that finish their white belt certification, the people that finish A3s, multiple A3s, are usually very persistent about, hey, we understand the problem. We know that there's a solution. Now we're going to be very persistent in implementing it, even though there's probably all kinds of different things that distract us from day to day and can prevent us from getting that done, okay? So that's the purpose of the solve phase, and we'll jump into step one here. So we want to find our optimal countermeasure. And there's a few things that we need to do that. We're going to need to come up with some evaluation criteria. We're going to need to come up with some solutions, and then we're going to need to select one of those solutions. In thinking through the evaluation criteria, this is a team effort, right? So what we want to recognize is there's no perfect solution, and we want the team to contribute their ideas. And we want to do that initially in a space without judgment, but then we want to have an agreement on, here's the criteria we're going to use to decide what optimal is, okay? And what you see on the screen here is typical 5 criteria that we use for that. It doesn't mean that's everything, and it doesn't mean that that's exactly what you need for your project, but it's a really good start. Effectiveness, cost, safety, quality, complexity. Effectiveness, does this solution resolve our problem? Does it take Joe's 15-minute gap in his commute and turn it to 6 minutes or 4 minutes, or completely eliminate it? Cost, what is it going to cost to implement? Do I have to purchase something new? Is there a lot of effort that we're going to have to put out as a team to implement it? That's something we want to think about. Safety, is this going to create any kind of safety issues? If Joe decides that he's just going to drive faster to work, that creates some safety issues, and we should consider that in the evaluation of our solutions. Quality, how does that change the output of what we're delivering to our customer? Is it better? Is it worse? Complexity, typically in processes, we want to try and reduce complexity. So Is this making things more difficult, more judgments or decisions? Do we have to train people on something new? Adding complexity creates more potential for errors, and we'd like to avoid that. So we want to think about that when we're deciding on the optimal solution. Like I said, you may, as a team, decide on some different criteria, but these are really good. This is a really good set of criteria to get you started, okay? So once we have the criteria locked down, now we have to come up with our different solutions, and that can be done in a series of ways. And I always tell people, there's probably endless ideas on the internet if you Google search or go to YouTube on how to do different kinds of brainstorming. I'm just going to talk about open brainstorming and silent brainstorming, but just know that there's a lot of different ways to do that. And in open brainstorming, we like to use the word or the phrase popcorn ideas. When you put a bunch of people in the room and say, okay, so how do we solve this? Ideas just pop out, especially when you've done the kind of work that we have to really see the problem, right? And to understand it. And I should mention that too. When you have this session with a group of people, make sure you're bringing in your A3 and you're going through all of the C steps so that everybody's on the same page and understands how we arrived here. It's not necessarily true that everybody in that session is going to have followed this project to where it's at today. So we want to make sure everyone is on the same page and that we're not leaving anyone behind or confusing anyone that might be new to the discussion. So if we've done that really well, ideas just pop out, and that's why we call them popcorn ideas. And we have members just sharing openly. Facilitator needs to be, which is typically going to be you as the white belt. Facilitator needs to be in there capturing the ideas, organizing the discussion, and trying to avoid tangents that the team might go in. So the benefits of this is a nice, simple process. It's very collaborative. Everybody gets to get their ideas out there, so no one can walk out and say, well, no one listened to me, right? Because we're generating a whole bunch of different countermeasures. The negatives, though, the risks in this is bunny trails. We go off in one direction, we go off in another direction. We're solving something, or we're solving bigger than what we really need to. Disruption, and when we're an open environment, there's more likely to be some judgment. Oh, that's a terrible idea. Why are we doing that? And frankly, you as the facilitator need to be able to manage that. If you know you have a group that is going to be challenged this way, and that maybe you're developing in your skills to facilitate, then silent brainstorming might be the better way to do it, right? Give the group just some Post-it notes, have them write quietly on the Post-it notes, and then just go slap them on your wall, and not have people reading them, not talking about them aloud. It gives team members a chance to share ideas without any judgment, right? And it also gives, some of maybe the more introverted people in the room the ability to express themselves non-verbally, because that's often a problem as well. You'll have somebody who's very extroverted kind of dominating the conversation, and someone introverted who has great ideas not saying anything, and you as a facilitator really have to manage that gap. If that's a problem, then silent brainstorming allows those people to kind of do their thoughtful, thinking, write it down, and then put it up on the wall. And then the facilitator takes those ideas and they organize it into groupings, common ideas. And the more we find common ideas, the more likely we have ideas that people are going to gel around. So this is also a nice, simple process. It can be very focused and time-bound. The only challenge is that it may take a little bit longer to execute. And because people are putting ideas on paper and throwing them on the wall, we don't get a chance for the kind of questions that help refine our understanding, right? The way one person writes something down and the way I interpret what it means might be two different things. And if we're not talking it out and we're just affinitizing or grouping the ideas into common groups, we may misinterpret something because we're not discussing it, right? So there's pluses and minuses there, but both of these will generate your list of countermeasures. And then once we have that, we want to capture this in a template, which I'll show you in just a minute. We want to review these ideas, these countermeasures against the evaluation criteria, We want to try and avoid comparing them to each other. We just want to think about them individually and rank them or rate them, I should say, on their own merits. And we also don't want to overanalyze. What you're going to see when we get to this table is it's qualitative. We don't put any numbers in here, and that's purposeful because we don't have data to really give these numbers. We're using subject matter expertise to determine what optimal is. And, not to go too far off tangent, but that's, we're in white belt. We're teaching base foundational problem-solving skills. When we teach our green belts or our black belts, we're figuring out more ways to collect data. But those problems usually have a bigger dollar value tied to them, and maybe more risk and implementation. So it requires a little bit more of that effort. In a good white belt project and an A3 report, these should be things that we do in 30 or 60 days and don't require quite that amount of analysis. So we don't want to overanalyze. We just want to use our knowledge as a team, which is probably, 80 to 90% of what we need to establish what optimal is, and then create a final score and make a selection. So here's the table for Joe. And just a few things about the table. You can see the countermeasures are down the left side column. Across the top, you can see we've got, of course, the ideas column, but then we have a column for each one of the criteria that we're considering. And then inside, we have our scoring, right? And again, we're not using numbers. You can see the key at the bottom. The star is optimal, the check is good, the triangle is acceptable, and the X is undesirable. And if we have X's, we don't really want to take that solution. And then so for each, if you could imagine this group sitting in a room, we're going to say, okay, let's plan for more time to get up earlier. Is there a lot of effort in that? No, but it's not optimal because the whole idea here was that I try and recoup my 15 minutes, right? And so this is sort of going against that. There's no cost to it, so that's optimal. It's safe, although maybe I'm not getting enough sleep, so maybe not quite optimal. There's no quality impact. There's no complexity impact. So overall, we're going to say it's good. How about identify a new route? Well, there's not a ton of effort, right? There's not much cost in it. Maybe I'm driving a little farther using more gas, but I'm driving faster. There's less traffic, so I'm making it to my destination more quickly. And so ultimately, you could see at the overall there, that's my optimal score. Now, I don't know that until I get to the end, and so I might consider partnering with others, but gosh, there's going to be a lot of effort in that because I'm going to have to go and coordinate schedules. That could be a really challenge. And then if we look at the next ones, pass traffic on the shoulder, skip shower, breakfast, work remotely, each one of those have some X's where we just, the safety impact of passing on the shoulder is too high. Skipping showers and breakfast, I think my coworkers are going to complain about that. So Joe is going to identify an alternative route, and this is very real actually. Not that I'm Joe, by the way. I'm Matt. But I live on the fringes of the Chicago suburbs, and I used to commute into a very congested suburb. And they were working on the expressway, right? High commuted road, requires lots of work. And so I had to find an alternate route and kind of worked my way around the suburbs and then went in with another expressway. But I guess the point is that this is very real, right? This is actually kind of thing happens to us. And this is sort of the thinking that we go through is, what the heck am I going to do in order to maintain the amount of time that it takes me to get to work? So Joe has his solution, and now he's going to go ahead and add it to the A3 report. And that's the completion of step 1. And so on the next module, we'll cover step 2 and step 3. Thanks.